I want to talk to you about how Insight can help businesses in enterprise service management. First, I want to tell you a little bit about Riara. Riara is a Swedish company with headquarters in Stockholm. We also have an office in Montreal, and we recently opened one in Berlin. We have about 30 employees in the development side of Riara. We also do consultancy services. We have today over 2,400 customers in 80 countries and 130 partners around the world that provide services around Insight, META-INF being one of them. So if you need services around Insight, talk to these guys. The products that we have Insight, the Insight platform as our main product, but it's not only Insight because it consists of several add-ons. So we have Insight, then we have Insight Discovery, which is a scanning tool to get data into Insight, and then we have numerous free apps as well. And I will show you which ones in a bit. So we live in a world of digital transformation. You might have heard this phrase numerous times, digital transformation. But what does it mean? It basically means that everything we do is becoming more and more related to IT, all services, and we have customers that expect better quality, so they demand better services. And providing customers with top quality service is becoming the center, and it's mostly related to IT. And that's where Jira Service Desk and Insight comes in. So what is an enterprise service management? You've heard about ITSM. ITSM is just one component of enterprise service management, and that's still a valid component and a very important one, and Jira fits just perfectly with that component. But we believe that it fits with all of those. So we not only have the ITSM component, we also have customer relations, we have HR, we have business processes, and so on. And all of them have underlying assets. So if you think of it, in ITSM management, we have IT assets. In customer relationships, the customers are assets. In human resources, the employee is an asset, and the employee's knowledge is also an asset. Then when you come to the ERP system, you can think of service catalogs, product catalogs. All of these are assets that can be categorized in Insight. So just to show you an example of an asset management tool, so this is not Jira Service Desk, it's not Insight, but it's CERN's service portal, just showing you that their portal is all around assets. So you create requests and you tie them to assets. So like the slide says, behind every service sits an object or an asset. So just to bring this into context actually does matter. So asset or assets is an important piece of every puzzle. If you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, you will be, like, it takes you longer to figure out the picture. So if we tie this into Jira, these are just typical service requests. So you have an onboarding request for a new employee, you have a software request, service down, somebody needs a desk, a manager needs a credit card, and so on. But the context that is missing is, okay, what team is the employee going to be on? Who will his manager be? Who approves the software request? What service is affected? Like, which service is down? And does it affect other services? So you need to know that, and that data comes from Insight. And then on top of that, we want to know, like, was the request even routed to the right service desk? It might not have been. So we might want different service desks, like for HR, for facility management, and then for IT. And a study done by Forrester proves my point, because a study done by Forrester tells us that the mean time to resolution 70% of the time goes into diagnosis and investigation of the problem, to figuring out what went wrong. And by having insight and the assets tied into the issue, you can drill your way down to the problem, and it significantly reduces the time it takes you to figure out what the problem is. So if we look at the previous example again, imagine if you could organize it like this. So we automatically route the requests to the right service desks. We also have the context. So we link the employee to the issue, we link the team, we can also link the physical asset of the desk, which room it should go into, what building the employee needs access to, if it's a manager and he needs a credit card, who approves it. And then we also have, like, if the employee requests a software, which software is he requesting and who needs to approve that request. And then if the service goes down, we have the affected service and we know which host it's running on. So if we need to reboot the host, we know exactly what services are also running on that host. So we can also map out the dependencies. So again, you might remember this picture from yesterday, I don't know. But we think this iceberg tells the story perfectly. So you have Jira and you have the tickets, and this is what the user really sees. But a Jira ticket can only hold that much information. I mean, you can create a bunch of custom fields and you can create rich data. You can create like perfect processes in Jira, and Jira is perfect for that, in case you didn't know. But you're missing the context. So by having your assets in Insight and tying them to the issues, you have much better content, which will allow you to solve the issue faster. And you can also, with just a few clicks, drill your way all the way down to the underlying problem. Oops. Okay, so I want to tell you a short customer story. And this story is actually not about IT assets. It's about controlling access to buildings. And the story is from the European Spallation Source. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that company, but it's a company founded by the European Union. And it's, like it says there, a research facility based on the world's most powerful neutron source. And you can see the facilities there. So this is like a 600-meter building where they're doing their, so this is like a sister company to CERN. If you know CERN, this is like a similar concept. So they have all these buildings, some of them are still in the making, but as you can imagine, this is a high security facilities. So all access needs to be controlled down into details. And then you use Insight to do that. So here we see an example of how they control access to all those facilities. They have all their employees in the system, or the 80 users, which they are integrating or importing from their Active Directory. So, and then they also have, if you look at where the red square is, you can see they don't only have the people, they also have like training certificates, they have all the facilities and access areas defined. And then this is all linked through the employee. So if we look at the employee is Hanno Gauss. We can see that it's an employee because they also have contractors and other like guests. Everyone is created there, also guests. And then we can see at the bottom the status of the employee, for example, that it's an active employee. If we look on the right-hand side, we have inbound references. And this is something you can do in Insight. You can create references between different types of objects. So you can easily see here what access, for example, Hanno has. He has access to one access area. You can see all his applications, which means that you can also see which applications he's using on his computer. You can see, like, he has vehicle access certificate and so on. And what else you can see is connected Jira issues. So Insight is obviously a part of Jira, and it has connections both ways. So from an insight object, you can easily access all related Jira issues, and from Jira issues, you can easily access the linked objects. So let's take another example of how this works as a CMDB, where we actually have IT assets. So this is, if someone here has stopped by our desks to get a demo, this is the same data that we have shown you. So if you haven't stopped by our desk and you want to see more details, please stop by after this presentation. So here we have an example of an ITSM structure, and we can see that we are viewing computers. So first you can create this structure. This is totally customizable. You just create the structure that you want in your database. And we sometimes say that Insight is basically just a database of anything you want. So in this case, IT assets, and this is the structure we have created. So we have computers, and we can see that we have 12 computers. And this can scale to no limit. We have customers with over 1 million assets in their system. Then we can also structure the data that we store about each object type. So we were viewing computers, and for computers, we have a set of attributes. We call them attributes. And in this case, we're just highlighting 4 of them. So we're collecting information from like which vendor does the computer come from, what operating system is running on the computer, how much RAM is on it, and the CPU or CPUs. Then if we take a look at one asset, which is not a computer, but it's a business service. So we have the business service SAP, and we can see all the details about that business service. So here we are collecting different set of data, and we can see that the name of the service is SAP, the status of the service is running, it's a critical business service, then we can see categories that it goes into, and then we can see the Oracle database server. And that's a reference field, one of many, which means that the service is linked to the server. So we could, in this case, click on the server to see if there are other business services running on that particular server. So by creating references or dependencies, we can drill our way down and we can view it graphically as well. Then again, we have links to the Jira issues. So in this case, we're viewing all SAP issues, but you can choose like if you view all the issues or if you view only the unresolved issues. So for example, if SAP would go down, the number of unresolved issues might raise because many people are reporting the same problem. So in that case, you would easily see that on the asset or the object view. So you could link the issues and you can like close all but one or something, depending on your processes. So how does this work for the end user? In this case, we are linking this to a service desk project. And for the user, it's very simple to create a request. Because with Insight, you get Insight custom fields. And when a user reports an incident for a business service, he simply just selects the business service from a drop-down field. And then when the agent starts to work on the issue, he gets much richer data. And this is one of the powers of the Insight custom field, is that you can display more than just a single line of value. So we are listing up all attributes that we find important to show on the issue. So everything to help the agent to solve the issue faster. And then also what the agent can do, both the agent can do this and everyone that has access to Insight, they can graphically view the asset. So that's one way of drilling down to the root cause of the problem. So in this case, we have SAP, we can click on the host and we can see the host, and then we could go even further and click on the business services to see, let's say if we need to reboot the host, we could see if other services get affected and notify the correspondent people. Let's see. All right. So there are numerous things you can do in Insight. It's super flexible. As I said, it's basically just a database that you can configure any way you want. And here we see one example of an automation rule. So you probably know, if you're Jira administrators, you might know the automation rules from Jira Service Desk. This one looks sort of the same, but it's an Insight automation rule. And so you can trigger things to happen based on the object. So in this case, when an object is updated and the object fits a specific condition, we execute Groovy scripts. So you can execute different actions. Groovy script is the most complicated one, but you can also just create a Jira issue, or you can send an email notification, or you can send an HTTP request. And then, because this is an old screenshot, we actually added a new one, which is attribute value. So you can also update an attribute on an object when something happens. And if I just talk about an example about this, so one example about how to use Insight is for license management. So let's say that you have numerous software licenses and you insert them into Insight as assets. You would add like an expiration date. So when do you need to renew the license? Then you can use the automation rules to remind you of the renewal. So you would create a condition, like when the license is about to be expired, not on the day it gets expires. You would like, okay, let's say 30 days before it expires, create a Jira issue to remind me of the renewal. So just to give you one example. And then if I go back one step, you can see we have automation tab up there selected, but you also see numerous other tabs. So this is just in one object schema, you can define all those different things. So another example, we have the import tab. And there you can import data into the object schema from numerous sources. So you can import from a CSV file, you can synchronize with a database, you can synchronize with an LDAP service, and like a bunch of other integration apps that I'll show you in a minute. So these are all the integration apps that we have currently. So like I said in the beginning, it's not only Insight, it's also Insight Discovery, which is the network scanning tool. And that's an agent-free network scanning tool. And then we have all the free integration apps. So if you have a Google Cloud environment, you can import from Google Cloud, AWS, ServiceNow, Azure, Snow, Jira, and so on. So I think the options here are almost limitless because you have the database integration in addition to this. But we have the framework ready, so if you would need an integration with another tool that we don't know about yet, it might be an easy new feature request to solve. So I want to leave you with a statement from one of our customers. So Klarna Bank is one of the fastest growing fintech companies in Europe, and they are based in Sweden. And they have been scaling, so for the past 14 years, they've scaled up to 60 million customers. And their statement is basically that Insight is a big part of their growth. Because they've grown at an enormous rate, they need context, they need real-time data, and their single source of truth is Insight. So I'm just going to leave you with this. I'm going to leave it up. And that was it for me. If you have any questions, please fire away. Or just stop by our booth if you have questions you want to ask us later. Thank you.